the 3 Garbodors are going to be pretty big. It looks like Eddie is going to be going first over on the right with Sylveon, and right away at the bottom of the deck, there it is, Sylveon GX. I think that's the main thing that you're worried about as the Sylveon player is opening up with a Fairy Energy in your opening hand. Getting Sylveons in play is so important, and so Eddie's already accomplished, I think, the hardest part of the deck.
Yeah, Eddie runs 12 Fairy Energy, and the reason he does this is because he also runs 4 Max Potion. So he wants to be able to reattach and keep using Magical Ribbon. So this is obviously the ideal opening hand for Eddie here. Maybe another Eevee would be cool, but already, you know, this is exactly what he wants. And a Judge, too. This is pretty good. Zach tries to take one of Eddie's prizes. That's the opposite of what he wants to do. But, you know, maybe Zach is on to something that we don't know.
Yeah, so we see the Judge right away. It's interesting. Eddie did have a DCE in his hand, so if he had held his hand, he could have just gotten a knockout next turn. But he probably wants to start Magical Ribboning at the beginning of these games. So even though he had the option to hold his hand, keep the double colorless energy to try to get a knockout next turn, that's kind of counterintuitive to what his strategy for the deck is actually going to be.
Yeah, you know, Eddie probably figures if Zach doesn't do anything, then he can ribbon for the DC the next turn. But if he does, he wants to be able to, like, to control him right from the outset. Zach's got a healthy amount of cards. I think I even saw a Lily in his hand.
I think I saw 2 Nest Balls and a Lily. So Zach will be able to play his hand down and draw a decent amount of cards here. But it's pretty daunting when you're staring down a 240 HP Sylveon. And the most damage you can do at this point in the game is 30.
Yeah. You know, those shrines, they're going to be invaluable, but Eddie has ample amount of outs to deal with them.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll eventually just be able to win the Stadium more due to Lusamine looping with the Mount Lanakila, presuming one of his Lusamines or the Stadium itself isn't prized. But if it is, if he has access to his Gladion, he'll be able to get them out of the prizes.
Yeah, and one thing I also noticed is that Zach runs 0 copy of Judge, which means that every single magical ribbon Eddie will just get to keep. So eventually Eddie will just have any card he wants at any time, which is, you know, that's another reason why Sylveon kind of struggled before is N. And with that gone, you know, he's gonna have a lot of fun with Zach here.
It was a rough go of it as far as the Acrobike discard options there. He had to either get rid of an energy or a choice band. Your energies are so important, and choice band is one of those things that can help you do more damage to these Sylveons, but unfortunately had to opt to get rid of one of those 2 cards there. Actually attaches the fighting to the Slugma in the active. I believe Slugma's first attack is colorless. Magmarine does 10 damage, and the defending Pokemon can't retreat, so does 20 damage to that Sylveon after the Shrine of Punishments, and Eddie's just going to go ahead and I think he's Magical Ribboning already.
Yeah, he had a double in his hand, he had an Eevee in his hand, and he had some fairies, so he could have done more, but you know, he realizes he doesn't need to needlessly burn cards. He doesn't want to put more GX in play for the Shrine, doesn't need to take the knockout here, so he's just going to grab 3 cards. I didn't see what he took.
Yeah, probably some amount of like disruption and or, you know, max potions. You definitely, things I think you always want to have in your hand as the Sylveon player are replacement fairy energies and max potions. We saw the fairy energies, so I assume he probably got the max potion, or maybe he's fine waiting until next turn.
Yeah, you know, if I'm Zach, it's not my winning in yet, but I had 2 chances. You know, I've got 2 chances, and Sylveon is probably the last deck I wanted to see.
Absolutely.
In round 8. So he has a psychic energy. He does not have a fighting energy, so he's probably, you know, maybe he grabs a Trubbish or another Buzz.
I'm actually not positive on Slugma's retreat. It's either 1 or 2. He might not be able to retreat at this turn. Looks like he's going to use another Ultra Ball. Discards a Psychic Energy. Yeah, and like you said, like discarding energies just feels so bad in this matchup. You want to keep those around because that's Eddie's whole goal is to just get rid of your energy cards.
And that's his only basic Psychic Energy. So every attack with Garbodor will require a Rainbow. We're just learning that Slugma has 2 retreat. So
yep. So can't move it this turn.
Pretty fat boy up there. And he is opting to
really get this Slugma powered up.
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe Macargo has some sort of attack we didn't We don't know about
Magcargo's attack for a fire and 2 colorless is combustion, and it does 50 damage. So it's not the best. Not going to do a lot to the Sylveon, unfortunately.
All right, I stand corrected. Chip, of course, knows every card ever. So
unfortunately, I don't know what Slugma's second attack is. So you got me there, I guess.
So he replaces the first shrine with his stadium. You know, he runs a copy of Field Blower, so that's his second out to his stadium. And then, of course, he runs the 2 Lucamines. So and a Palpad even.
And we have just learned that it is Fire Colorless Flare does 20 damage, so that's why we saw that extra damage going on to the Sylveon last turn. But that won't happen again because we just saw the Enhanced Hammer get rid of that Rainbow Energy. And if I'm Zach, like, I'm going to be pretty mindful, I think, of my Rainbow Energy attachments. He's already gotten rid of the Psychic Energy. That Rainbow just went down, and I think Trashalanche is his best out to try to win this game. I think you want to try to poke Sylveons with Buzzwole early, and then try to go into taking big knockouts with Trashalanche.
Yeah, maybe force Max Potions out, force him to play items.
Sure.
Something that Slugma, unfortunately, just does not have the firepower to do.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at it, it almost seems like Slugma might just be like one of the worst starters Zach could have, honestly.
Almost certainly.
Kukui here going to draw 2 cards. That's going to be a strong Magma Ring from Slugma this turn.
The problem with, you know, with everything Zach is doing, there's another attachment, but Eddie is almost certainly have the outs to it. 3 Enhanced Hammer, 4 Crushing.
Going to do 40 damage there with the Flare from Slugma. But Eddie, yeah, almost certainly, like we said, has outs. And since Zach started this Slugma, Eddie might just be able to, like, keep energies off of this for the entire game, and this could get stuck active. That might be why he was holding off on benching the other Eevee, because he didn't want to give Zach, like, a Guzma switching option.
Yep.
But he's decided to bench it here, so we'll see. I'd be surprised if he's benching it and he's not going to use Energy Evolution.
I see an Acerola in his hand, so if he has the Energy Evolution play, he can Acerola and just leave the lone Sylveon still. You know, reset the bodybuilding dumbbells and keep going with Magical Ribbon.
Sure.
I think that's what he's doing. He's searching. He might also take the other Sylveon.
Yeah, he could.
That one's a little weaker, but I guess he has bodybuilding dumbbells to keep it alive. And those, like we said, those will stick because Zach has no Field Blower.
Yeah, we see some other interesting cards in Eddie's list. We just saw some as he's thumbing through his deck. He's got things like multi-switch here that is going to let him like pull off some interesting potential like retreat plus max potion plays maybe. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting list here on Eddie's side.
He's eyeing that Plumeria. I think he's going for both. He's going to knock off both of these energies. And now this Slugma is, you know, it's kind of a deer in headlights. Totally helpless against this pink menace.
Yeah, and Eddie was actually fine leaving 100 damage on this Sylveon. It's pretty, I don't know that Zach has a way to do 140 damage this turn, so I think he's assuming it's pretty safe, and he's going to go ahead and get the Lucamine in his hand. Looks like a max potion as well, and he'll be able to get that Lucamine chain going on the next turn.
Yeah, Lucamine, of course, can take itself. So with one Lucamine in the discard pile, you can infinitely loop the supporters you want, which is, you know, looping stuff like Plumeria against a deck with low energy is just devastating.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's unfortunate about Plumeria compared to something in the last format, like Team Flare Grunt, for example, is that you have to discard 2 cards, so each discard definitely feels pretty painful. We see right away Zach brings a Guzma to the front of his hand. He has a switch option now that he didn't have previously because there were no Pokemon on Eddie's side of the field. He's going to put a Trebuchet in play as well. We'll see what he's trying to set up here.
He's got a Beast Energy, so he's going to be able to hit this other Sylveon for 60, but not really that good.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, what Zach really just has to hope for and has to do. You've got to just poke, just annoy enough, force them to play items, and hope that Trashalanche is going to get you there later on in the game. I think that's just got to be what Zach has to be hoping for at this point.
There's another bodybuilding dumbbells. Zach is probably not too happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We see there's a DCE in Eddie's hand. He could start attacking here. He does play 2 copies of Professor Kukui, so if he set himself up with a Kukui in his hand, he could maybe pull off one of those plays, but looks like he's not going to do that quite yet. Just uses Energy Evolution on the benched Eevee and is going to find another Sylveon.
Is there another Sylveon in his deck? Is the Naniac Sylveon in there?
Looks like he fails it. Ooh, maybe didn't quite check his prizes as much as he... Or maybe it's in his hand and we just haven't seen it yet.
I don't think so. I didn't see anything pink.
Must be waiting for a Lucamine or something along... Or, excuse me, a Gladian or something along those lines to get it out of the prizes.
Yeah, it could be. So now he'll Magical Ribbon again. He already has a Max Potion in his hand, as well as, I believe, that Acerola.
Yeah.
So, you know, it probably takes for sure an Enhanced Hammer to get rid of this Beast Energy. Maybe a Crushing Hammer as well.
It looks like he's also eyeing up that Gladian. And why do you think it is that, like, these decks like Sylveon can utilize Gladian so well compared to other decks where we don't really see Gladian utilized?
You know, for starters, there's a lot of one-ofs that could be useful in his deck. And also, it's just, you know, can find another supporter that you want out of the prizes, and then replace it, and then use that with Lucamine.
Sure.
And also, I mean, when your opponent's not doing anything anyway, kind of just finds you access to 6 new cards. You know, the Sylveon deck can win by not taking prizes.
Right.
So Gladion gives it a way to access those prizes if it needs to.
Makes sense. We're going to see another attachment here to the Buzzwole. Maybe going to try to set up a swing around. I'm sure Eddie is not going to let that many energy get on a Buzzwole, though.
Yeah, he did take the Plumeria last turn, so he's probably going to, you know, he's going to try the Crushing Hammer first. If he can hit that, then he will knock off, you know, one of the energy, and then Plumeria will finish it off. But Zach is hoping he can build the energy needed on a Buzzwole to just start using Swing Around. That's going to be his only chance at staying in this game.
150 damage on that Sylveon. Here comes the first Crushing Hammer of the game. Is it Tails?
Zach wants to see that.
Yeah, Zach definitely wants to see that. Unfortunate for Eddie. He does have... did he not set himself up with an Enhanced Hammer, or has he already used Enhanced? I think he's used 2 Enhanced Hammer.
I think he's
already.
used 2. So that might be why he took the Gladion, is that he can find the other Enhanced Hammer in the prizes. There it is.
Yeah,
Gladion replaces the card that you take out of the prizes, and then you shuffle them again. You don't know Gladion's placement in the prizes.
Sure. Yeah, so that's, you know, smart play there from Eddie. He knows, okay, my third Enhanced Hammer is not in the deck, so I can get Gladion, and that'll find it for me. So, smart play by Eddie.
Beast Energy to the Lost Zone. He does have a Max Potion as well. Oh, he is trying to play Plumeria, but Zach catches it.
He's already played Gladion this turn.
Yep. So Eddie's Sylveon has 90 HP left, so it is not... the only way it would die is if Zach plays a Diancie and a Kukui this turn. And then Sledgehammer would reach to... actually, maybe not. No, it would. It would reach to 100 to knock out the Sylveon. So, you know, but that's only the first Sylveon.
Sure.
And then...
I mean, it's interesting, too. Eddie did have a Field Blower in his hand. He could have gotten rid of this Choice Band and forced Zach to have more cards. But I think he's wanting to just save it as another option to get rid of Shrine on a turn he needs to Lucamine for something that's not the Mount Lanakila, maybe?
Yep.
So I'm not sure. It's interesting. We'll see where he goes from here. And we'll see if Zach has those combo pieces. Like you said, Kukui plus Diancie would get him the first knockout. And if you can get a knockout on a Sylveon without Trash Lanching yet, I think that's a big win for Zach.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and also maybe Eddie just doesn't want to put more items in the discard yet unless he needs to. You know, he played the Crushing Hammer and it failed, so he does have the Diancie. He's eyeing the Diancie, but I don't see the Kukui in his hand. So that's... Might as well do no damage because it's not a knockout and he can just heal it.
Yeah, and like we said, with no Disruption supporters, Eddie's going to get to keep those cards he put into his hand every single time.
Yeah. So he'll come just short of knocking this out. Something, you know, another play that Eddie has access to with the Sylveon Disruption is he can plead GX. So whenever his opponent does manage to get some sort of threat going, he can Guzma and plead away. Plead GX takes 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon and puts them and all cards attached to it into your opponent's hand. So pretty much deletes any sort of threat. So
yeah, and it's interesting too, like, Eddie plays the Team Skullgrunt, so I wonder if he's had a lot of games this tournament where Plea GX into Team Skullgrunt has allowed him to get rid of multiple energy cards from his opponent's hands.
Yeah, and these kind of combo plays, they require multiple turns to set up. In the past, that was kind of the problem with Sylveon and why it wasn't good is because your opponent would end you all the time. But now, there's, players aren't running a lot of copies of Judge. We see a knockout. The Shrine is what pushes Zach there.
Gets him that extra damage needed.
Right, so that's probably why he saved the Field Blower. So he has another counter to Shrine here. He has Max Potion as well, so if he can, Max Potion, Field Blower, Plumeria, set Zach back a little ways.
Yeah, he's also got access now to Counter Catcher since Zach has utilized his first... taking his first knockout, and looks like he's going to counter catcher right away. Brings up that DNC Prism Star.
Interesting.
So now we can maybe even see that Plea GX come into play you were talking about.
He does have the Skull Grunt, yep.
But then at the same time, I guess he's leaving so much damage on this Sylveon, and he doesn't know Zach's list, and looking at it, he does play one copy of Switch, so if Zach was able to find that, that could definitely punish Eddie.
Yeah, he attaches a double. I think he's...
Looks like he might be going for it.
He's going to Lusamine. Maybe he takes the Mount. Yep.
Mount Line
so
comes back.
So now that DNC has 3 retreat, not that it really mattered before, 2 retreat was still a lot, but a non-item way of replacing the Shrine. And then he takes the other Lusamine as well. He please, and he puts them both back. So sets Zach back 2 turns. And now Zach has to basically do that entire thing again with only a DNC and Slugma right now.
Yeah, that's pretty rough if you're Zach, honestly. I mean, Eddie also plays a heavy count of Judge, so we could even see him judge away that Garbodor back into the deck next turn if he didn't want a Skull Grunt. So he's just left himself with a lot of options here. But, I mean, Zach has played this really intelligently so far, I think. Zach's one of the best players in North America. Made top 16 this past season, and so he knows his way around these stall decks like Sylveon, and he knows what he needs to do in order to get a win.
We saw Wailord in Roanoke,
yep.
And we talked about then how a lot of these stall decks, they have a different skin on them, but they all kind of function the same. So an experienced player like Zach has certainly played against these kind of decks before, so he kind of knows, how he needs to handle them.
Wait, I think Eddie just cut away the... I think he was trying to cut, but it was the smooth over card. So I think they've got it fixed. Eddie thought, I think, that the card was left out on accident and was trying to just put it back.
Yeah, Eddie wants to exercise full control over every aspect of Zach's deck, including cutting
this
when not required.
Yeah.
So Zach discards a Shrine, which means that the card he took, I think it's a Guzma, and that's a switching effect that will get the DNC out of the active spot in the next turn. So
yeah, I think he wants to use it here and just take a knockout on this Fighting Week Eevee, it looks like.
Yep. So now the Sylveon has got a lot of damage. He has Max Potion, but now he's kind of down to this lone Sylveon. And he'll need to start exercising a little more direct control, I think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We haven't seen a single Max Potion yet from Eddie, which is sort of what you expect to see from this deck, right? But we're just going to see a Guzma comes out, and maybe a Max Potion plus a Magical Ribbon. We'll have to see what he goes for. I think he's counting the number of items in his discard pile. Looks like 4, 5, 6. So 6, hitting for 120 with Trash Lanch.
But now if I'm Eddie, now I need to start, using the Lusamine to get stuff like Plumeria to kind of just hate away Zach's energy. And then kind of sweep through this game. So, I'm going to see a Magical Ribbon. I would imagine maybe taking Crushing Hammer. There's an Eevee there as well, but he doesn't have another Sylveon in his deck currently.
Yeah, and I don't think he has a way in his list to get Pokemon back, it doesn't look like. He could get the Pokemon under the prizes with Gladium, but he's already used the Gladium this game, so he won't have access to that unless he starts to take prize cards.
Yeah. Fortunately, the Sylveon will buffer a few hits, but, still a ways to go here. He's eyeing the Skull Grunt as well. Zach does have a handful of energy in his hand, so Skull Grunt would kind of accelerate this energy destruction process.
Yeah, it looks like he just grabbed a couple supporters and I think a Fairy Energy, maybe a Max. It was either a Fairy Energy or a Max Potion, I think.
I think he already has a second Max Po in his hand.
Okay, so maybe the Fairy.
Probably Fairy. You know, he figures the Garb is a problem, but if, you know, I never let the Garb come into the active spot by hitting away all these energy, it doesn't matter. Zach, of course, has the switch to do that for one turn, but
I think there should be 7 items in the discard pile now, so 140 damage from a Trash Avalanche is definitely getting up there in damage output. Eddie's definitely going to want to be mindful of how he places items throughout the rest of the game.
Zach has 1 energy in his hand, I believe. Just that fighting. So Skullgrunt here is actually very low value. If Eddie does use it, but he does have the Plumeria. I assume he probably wants to use Plumeria first if Zach does attach to this Baby Buzz.
Because those are both of the energy he knew about in Zach's hand. They're both back in play. So Skullgrunt at this point is something you just have no knowledge of what is included.
Yeah. So there's 1 basic fighting in the discard, 1 basic psychic. So he's got 1 basic fighting left. And I think he has 2 rainbows left.
Just a pass from Zach. I'm not sure if he used Smooth Over last turn or not.
I don't believe he did.
So maybe just wanting to take it a little slower here. Maybe not anything that's specifically going to help him out next turn. I'm not sure. But we just see Plumeria is going to discard an energy from the Buzzwole. And I think this is Eddie's strategy here. We're going to let them take a couple prizes maybe, but once we get to a certain point in the game, we're just going to remove energy every single turn.
Yep.
He's got Crushing Hammers left in the deck. Looks like he's still eyeing up that Eevee. Maybe that Wink Wink Sylveon is in there and we just didn't notice it, or he just didn't want to take it originally. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did decide to take the Eevee, though. And there is some value in, you know, giving up a 1-prize Pokemon like the Wink Wink Sylveon or the Eevee, because you're forcing your opponent to take 4 knockouts, to have the resource to take 4 knockouts, and it's definitely very difficult to do that when Sylveon is disrupting you every single turn.
Yeah, so he evolves into the second Garbodor. You know, the thing with this is Zach is, you know, he's playing a lot of cards as well. So Eddie's, you know, long-term strategy of decking him out here is getting more effective with each card that Zach puts onto the board. He's using Smooth Over. It doesn't look like he has too many cards. I'd say probably under 20 if I had to guess.
Yeah.
But the big thing is there's only 3 energy left, I believe. So, pretty important for Zach. Did not see what he took with the Smooth Over.
I'm not quite sure. You know, and we just saw something there where Zach was counting Eddie's deck, actually. Eddie's been pulling 3 cards out of his deck basically every single turn, except for the turn he used Plea GX. So his deck is getting relatively thin. I think Zach is maybe seeing, hey, is there a chance that we get to a point where Eddie could be the one who's running out of cards in his deck? The only way Eddie has to put cards back into his deck is Palpad, but he could always just use Lusamine, get Judge, and shuffle his hand back into his deck to try to prevent ever decking out.
Ooh, Skullgrunt finds nothing. He did see what Zach has.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, he has the Kukui, so this next turn he could Smooth Over and then draw it this same turn with Kukui if he wanted. You know, maybe he's looking for that switch play into a Buzz or into a Trash Avalanche.
Yeah, and I think even though Eddie didn't hit any energy cards there with the Skullgrunt, like you said, he saw Zach's hands. Like, he has knowledge now. He knows what can Zach do to me next turn, and what can I do to prevent that in the coming turns. So, looks like he is going to go ahead and opt for that Palpad, maybe. See Zach shuffling Eddie's deck.
Now it is on Zach again. So I don't see what he drew.
Yeah, he smoothed over for it, so he'll have access to whatever it was, right? Maybe he wants to set up a switch with, like, a Trash Avalanche. You're going to see a smooth over once again.
Another thing about this game is we're basically at the halfway point. And, you know, the game is kind of looks like it's starting to reach the end game with how small these players' decks are, but the thing with Sylveon and these kind of decks is you either win the first game and then the set, or you lose the first game, and chances are you won't have time to finish another game.
Yeah.
So Zach is smart. You know, he's taking his time. He might have a chance to win a quick game 2 if it gets to that point, but being deliberate in all of his turns. He's opting to just continue to pass. You know, like you were saying, the more Eddie continues to, you know, Magical Ribbon and stuff, fewer cards he has. So
yeah,
gonna discard.
He's playing Plumeria. I'm not sure what the first card was he discarded. That's a pretty gnarly glare on that benched card, or that card near Eddie's bench. We'll see what it is when it hits the discard. Looks like he's got another Acerola in his hand he could be discarding here. We'll see. Looks like Skullgrounds. Yeah, that's a lot of energy in Zach's discard pile now. I think he's out of basic fighting energy.
And Eddie has quite a few fairy in his deck, but not much else. He only takes 2 cards this time, I think.
Yeah, Magical Ribbon lets you take up to 3 cards, so you don't have to take 3. Yeah, I think that's exactly what Zach was checking right there. But yeah, you can take up to 3 cards. So yeah, buckle in, folks. We're in for the long haul here. We're just going to have to see how the rest of this game pans out. Zach counting Eddie's deck real fast. Definitely is getting thin, but I think Eddie is going to be able to, you know, keep cards back in his deck through things like Lusamine plus Judge. He'll make sure he never decks out.
Yeah. You know, Eddie also has that other Eevee in his hand and the Acerola. So he could set up a turn where he kind of baits Zach into maybe choosing the Eevee or continuing to attack the Sylveon if he manages to get this DNC out of his deck. Zach continuing to use Smooth Over. He presents his hand, almost it looks like.
Yeah, they're both about the same size, honestly, his deck in his hand. A lot of cards in his hand at this point in the game. A lot of draw passing going on from Zach. He has been able to get whatever card he wants into his hand every single turn. Just none of them have been useful, unfortunately.
This is pretty smart by Zach. You know, it seems like Eddie has control of this game, and you know, he does, in that he controls Zach's energies and stuff, but you know, Zach is playing this very smart by just sitting there and kind of passing every turn. He doesn't need to do anything, and it continues to force Eddie to play cards.
Yeah. I think Eddie just passed there, not using Magical Ribbon anymore. He knows I'm getting low on resources as well. I got to just kind of wait this one out, use my Lusamines to do what I want to do every single turn.
You know, but technically speaking, if this game had unlimited time, Eddie would never deck out because he could Lusamine chain all of his supporters and then Judge and then just repeat this over and over.
Yeah.
So, frustratingly, unlimited resources for Eddie if you're Zach.
Yeah, you can just always, you can plus 1 card in your hand every single turn and then get to a turn later on where you eventually judge everything back in and you never deck out. But your opponent will eventually run out of resources since they don't have that same unlimited use of their discard pile.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. At Worlds, we saw a lot of people playing Oranguru as a response to the Zoric control decks. And Oranguru is a card that is, you know, that Sylveon absolutely despises.
Yeah.
And, you know, still legal in this new format, and, you know, I haven't seen it at all today.
Yeah, I don't think any Zoroark decks we've featured, or any Zoroark decks I've seen while walking around, have featured the Oranguru. And it looks like he does actually have that Wink Wink Sylveon in his hands.
He's going to keep doing the Lusamine chain. You know, if Zach is being passive, then he's fine being passive.
Yeah. Yeah, Eddie's played this deck a lot today, obviously. He's played it, I'm sure tested it a lot before this tournament as well. So he knows these games can go very, very long, but he knows that even if they go long, they can end in his favor.
Yeah, speaking of testing this a lot, I wonder how he did it because, you know, personally I can't imagine anybody who'd want to test against this sort of archetype. So maybe he just grinded games on TCGO. You know, playing against these things isn't the most fun, but you know, Eddie's probably having a good time today.
Yeah, even on TCGO, though, I feel like a lot of people, whenever they get matched up against Sylveon on the PTCGO ladder, just instantly concede. They're like, I don't want to waste 30 minutes of my time trying to beat this deck that I might not even be able to beat anyway. So I'm sure he got some amount of testing in, but yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I know. I definitely concede instantly, so don't want to give him the satisfaction.
Yeah, so I'm going to go out on my own terms.
Zach continuing to use Smooth Over. I can't really see what he's taking, but you know, whatever it is, he's playing the long game right now. But you know, like we talked about, Eddie is fine playing this long game. Another Skull Grunt.
Yeah, we'll see the rest of Zach's hand, see what he's been working with. Maybe he has any energy card in there, any energy cards.
You know, he probably figured a while ago that keeping energy in his hand isn't safe.
Yeah.
Keeping energy on his field isn't safe. Yeah, hide your kids, hide your energy, because Eddie is coming for them with this Sylveon deck here.
We see him bench the Eevee there. I wonder if he knew Zach didn't have a Guzma in his hand. I didn't quite catch all of Zach's hand, so he may think, okay, this Eevee is actually safe for a single turn.
He doesn't have the he has a Guzma, but I don't believe he has an energy.
Right.
So
yeah. He knew he didn't have an energy, so he knows he can get the evolution next turn if he wants to.
The problem with this is that, you know, Eddie is in a situation, unless Eddie has Guzma himself, which he does. So this Eevee won't get stranded active. He can just pull up like the Macargo or the DNC again. If Zach decides to do the Guzma, but if I'm Zach, I don't really know why I would. I can't do anything with it.
We actually could get to an interesting scenario where, like, Zach needs something like his last Professor Kukui to get a knockout or something, and Eddie can use Wink Wink and discard the Professor Kukui, so Zach doesn't have access to it. So if it was just in his hand, I didn't catch every card in his hand with that Team Skullgrunt, unfortunately. That might be why Eddie is going this route.
Another thing, though, is Eddie needs to be aware of how many cards are in his deck. If he I think he might have only, I don't know how many he has, but if he has only 2 cards left, he can't do this play. Because he will lose, unless he has something like Palpat in his hand, which I think he does, actually.
Yeah, I think he does have Palpat, and I think he does have a Judge still, so he'll have that option as well.
Here comes Wink Wink.
Forbidden Light. Zach's going to read it to just make sure he knows what it does. Guzma is going to bring something to the active. The Judge wants to read it too, just to make sure we know what it does, make sure everyone's on the same page. I believe it does have an attack as well. I think it does... an additional attack to Wink Wink. I think it does 40 damage or something like that for 2 colorless.
So he actually has a Sylveon as well,
or
a Cynthia as well. So he's opting to shuffle his hand in, put his huge hand back into the deck, and go up on the deck out race.
Yeah, this is actually really smart from Eddie. Not only does he get to prevent himself from decking out, but he's also getting rid of one of Zach's shuffle draw supporters that could prolong the game. So it's pretty smart, actually.
Yep. And now Eddie, and he still knows what's in Zach's hand, so he kind of has free reign to keep feasting on these supporters, like the Kukui that Zach might need. In addition, with this other Sylveon in the active spot, if it doesn't get knocked out this turn, Eddie has a turn to like keep attaching to the Sylveon GX if he wanted to use Fairy Wind at any point. So very smart play by Eddie.
Yeah, I think we're at a point, like I was talking about earlier, like Eddie can take 6 prizes with this deck, but I think we're definitely at a point where he doesn't want to start using Fairy Wind because he never wants to give Zach the opportunity to use Sledgehammer. That could just be a big turn that gets him a lot of damage in play where maybe Eddie doesn't have the resources left to respond to it, or it forces him to play items to respond to it. So I think we're probably just going to see him use this Wink Wink / Lusamine chain strategy through the rest of the game. And I think he did draw the Lusamine off of the Cynthia, which is pretty great for him.
I think that's what he's playing right now. You know, if I'm Zach, like I'm looking at Zach's list and what we've seen Zach play, and I just wonder what his strategy for winning this game is. You know, even if they just drop past now, Eddie's deck is way bigger.
Yeah.
So he's just going to keep using Hocus Pocus. There's a Lily and a Kukui in there. So... see what he gets rid of.
I wonder, it looks like he's going to get rid of the Kukui. I actually don't know. Can he still discard the Lily even if he can't draw up to 6 cards? I would think so, because it's like do as much as you can. It would depend exactly what the Sylveon's wording is on the card.
Yeah, if it says discard the supporter, then use its effect, he could. But yeah, I just wonder if I'm Zach, like, maybe Zach is trying to get it as close to the end of time as possible so he can win a super fast game 2 and force a tie. Because, you know, if I'm Zach, I have to understand that there's probably nothing I can do to win this game. You know, Zach just doesn't have enough anymore, if I had to guess. But I guess I don't know how many items are in Eddie's discard. Is it still 7?
I'm not quite sure, honestly.
It's been so long.
It has been a while. But he hasn't played a lot of items since that, a few turns ago. He has just been playing Lusamine. He's been looping, all those things. And yeah, we're just going to see Zach pass over to Eddie's turn.
Zach is going to do the work for us here. Might as well. He doesn't have anything else to do.
Gonna Lusamine here from Eddie. Get back Lusamine and maybe like a Plumeria, Skullgrunt. Honestly, he's just trying to +1 card into his hand. Actually getting Kukui. No, gonna get Skullgrunt.
Now, there you go. He is attaching to that Sylveon. He's just gonna keep using Wink Wink.
Yeah, if there was one card coming into the day that he told me I was gonna see, and it was Wink Wink Sylveon from Forbidden Light, I would have told you you're crazy, but looks like that is the case here in round 8 of the Philadelphia Regional Championships. I think they're discussing right now, can he discard the card even if he doesn't use it to full effect? And looks like that is indeed the case.
Yeah, if you had asked me if I would have seen this Wink Wink Sylveon, I would have told you that I probably didn't know it existed. You know, they don't release a lot of Sylveon.
You would have said, what card is that?
Yeah, exactly. And this Sylveon GX is, I think, the only good Sylveon ever up to this point. Well, I guess until Wink Wink. That's right.
Don't sleep on Wink Wink, man.
That's right. I mean, Eddie's actually gotten a lot of use out of it. You know, with that Cynthia play, that was pretty huge. So, yeah, I'm thinking the time thing is what Zach is trying to do. Just go as low as possible, and then maybe hopefully steal a quick game. Because the Sylveon deck is very slow. It takes a long time to establish this perfect lock.
Sure.
Finally starts putting an energy in play. Eddie has been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, he's got the Plumeria in his
plays
hand.
Plumeria instantly. Get that energy out of here.
Looks like he's going to discard an energy and maybe an Acerola here. Just get rid of Zach's energy, and, you know, he has full access to, you know, just always being able to use Plumeria, and it really doesn't cost him anything. It just takes him a lot of turns to get the cards back that he had to discard.
Right, and he retreats, and he's actually going to start using the Fairy Wind.
All right.
Going to start putting that pressure on Zach immediately. You know, maybe Eddie is thinking about the time thing and realizing that he wants as much time as possible for this second game because he figures he's going to win.
So we'll have to go over to Zach here. Also, just based on how Zach is playing, I think Eddie is assuming Zach probably doesn't have an energy in his hand or didn't smooth one over last turn. So I think Zach's been like trying to keep them in his deck, but he may not be able to get one this turn and may not be able to attack with the Garbiter.
So he's almost certainly probably going to smooth over. Well, he can't smooth over, actually.
Nope, he got rid of the Magcargo last turn.
So he has to wait a turn for that. Fortunately, Garbodor has 120 HP, and Eddie did just discard that Kukui on the last turn. So it will take 2 hits to knock this out. But Eddie does have access to like a Guzma to totally just disrupt this strategy again if he wants.
It looks like we're just going to see the Lusamine getting things going first off here. One thing that's interesting, though, since Eddie prized his other Sylveon, and actually his all his EVs have been played, he doesn't have a way to put another Sylveon GX in play this game. And even so, his last one's prized, so even though Zach would have 3 prizes left, if this Sylveon goes down, or even though Zach would have 1 prize left, if this Sylveon goes down, Eddie does not have a way to establish another one.
And now Zach, you know, he sees he can't attach an energy to this Garbodor to attack, even if he drew one, because it would just get knocked out immediately. So
yeah, that's basic Psychic got discarded really early this game.
Yeah, by Zach actually.
Yeah.
So he's got the smooth over again. So now if I'm Eddie, he was eyeing that Judge for just a second with the Lusamine on the last turn. You know, that might have been smart to disrupt, you know, presumably an energy that he puts up top, but maybe he feels he has enough control in this game that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, he does play 3 Judge. There's always a chance he has one in his hand already. I think Judge there would have been a solid play, honestly, from Eddie. But at the same time, he wants to try to keep. It seems counterintuitive to Judge, right? Because you're gonna put more cards back into your opponent's deck. But at the same time, you want to prevent them from having access to all their resources.
Right. He actually just ripped the Judge off the top anyway. We'll see what he wants to do. The deck also doesn't have a way to get back basic energy.
I don't believe so.
Other than like Acerola and picking up your Sylveon. So he does have the multi-switch if he wanted like a Guzma multi-switch play after a max potion to keep the energy going. But
looks like we do just see a Judge come out. Judge plus Fairy Wind here will take Zach's Garbiter out of play, and it's really going to be on Zach here to draw a Rainbow Energy, I think.
Yep.
Both decks very thin at this point, and less than 10 minutes remain. So this is coming down to the wire, folks.
So Eddie draws. Zach has 2 Rainbow in play. So if he's or 2 Rainbow in his deck. So if he's able to attach both and knock out this Sylveon, then there's a small chance he can actually escape with a win here. But he's putting up the Buzzwole.
Well, Eddie is at 4 prizes, so he's on Sledgehammer turn. He could utilize that potentially. I think he does have a Rainbow in his hand. Something I maybe would have liked to have seen from Eddie, honestly, is just to use a Magical Ribbon that turn, because you can set your hand up to respond to something like a Sledgehammer from Zach, and Zach is not going to be able to attach to that active Garbodor because it had 110 damage on it.
Right.
So maybe Eddie could have tried to set something with that up. But yeah, it looks like Zach's just going to use Smooth Over, and he did get that an energy card off of that Judge, so that's exactly what Zach needed to see.
Eddie is kind of doing Zach a favor by moving the Garbodor out of the way for him.
Yep.
So, it's interesting play, but maybe Eddie figures Zach has so few resources left that he can just close it out anyway. Zach. Oh, Eddie thought maybe Zach was passing or something, but
yeah, it looks like Eddie started to draw a card there. Doesn't look like he put it in his hand or saw it though.
His Buzzwole is ready to go.
Looks like we might be having a discussion at the table.
So I'm wondering if it maybe has to do with that drawn card.
Maybe he did actually see it, or looks like we're gonna have the Judge go consult. So hopefully this isn't an issue. We're at a point in the game where that actually would be really huge. A double prize penalty in Zach's favor means he only needs 1 more knockout. So Guzma Trashalanche on that Wink Wink Sylveon wins him the game.
Yeah. That's definitely not how anybody expected this game to go. If it goes that way, and a big change in the match.
So we'll hopefully get a ruling on this very soon and know what exactly is happening at the table, but it looks like there has been a stoppage of play, at least for now. Yeah, like I said, that would just be huge. Zach would almost certainly be able to close this one out if that was the case. And yeah, I mean, it's important, right? We're at the highest level of play here, regional championships. There's a lot of money on the line. You got to make sure you're procedurally doing things correct. You can't accidentally draw cards when you're not supposed to. I mean, those things are penalized in the rule book by Pokemon, so those are things that we got to be mindful of, for sure.
Yeah. Obviously time pretty close to the end. They're going to get a time extension, probably a couple minutes or something, but, still very close to the end. Zach, we mentioned this, 10 minutes ago, but this time strategy is one of the best ways to actually beat these decks. It seems like you're going to lose until the very end when you win with very little time left, and then, there's no way Eddie could win a game. So we see the Judge come back. We're going to see
It sounds like they're giving the ruling. Once the players get the ruling, we'll get it updated to us as well. So we'll figure out what exactly is going on, and we'll update you guys as soon as we know more. If Eddie saw the card or if it went to his hand, or honestly, even just picking it up, I'm not sure if that warrants the penalty, what the exact how the penalty actually functions. Maybe Eddie said he did accidentally see the card. I'm not quite sure what the whole discussion has been at the table. So since the Judge is revealing it, I'm assuming that the players did see the card.
We're waiting on the relay now.
So we've just been informed the card has been revealed, shuffled into the deck, and there will be a 2-prize penalty in Zach's favor. I mean, like we said, this is important, guys. It's the highest level of play. That is just a detrimental error on Eddie's side.
So now the game looks very different. I believe Zach definitely has a Guzma left, and he certainly has one more Rainbow left. So now he is, like you said, a Guzma energy trash lunch away from just winning this game.
Yeah, he has played a couple. He has 3 in his list. I'm not sure if he's played 3. I don't think he has, so as long as they're not prized, he should have access to them, but I'm not positive.
He's going to Sledgehammer. I'll do 150 on the Sylveon. 170, sorry, with the DNC.
In play.
It's funny. This game has been going on for 45 minutes, and now Sledgehammer comes into play. But that's how Eddie wants these games to go. He doesn't care if you get Sledgehammer at this point in the game, maybe.
Yeah.
But so now Eddie, suddenly this changes the entire dynamic of the game.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a Fairy Energy in his hand, so if he heals this Sylveon, he won't have a way to continue using Magical Ribbon.
Looks like he's debating a Skull Grunt.
Goes for the Crushing Hammer. We don't see what the roll is.
Looks like it was a heads.
Looks like it was a heads. Zach opting to take 1 damage counter instead of discarding the energy. But we see what Zach has. So he does have the Guzma. And if he did smooth over the energy, then Zach will win next turn.
Jeez.
And
I wonder if Eddie... Oh, he doesn't have an energy card. He could have pulled something off where he used Wink Wink to discard the Guzma, so Zach no longer has access to it. But he just doesn't have the Fairy Energy to make it happen. Maybe if there was the multi-switch in his hand, I'm not sure. I think Eddie is counting his energies right now. What does he have left? There's 4 basic fighting, 3 rainbows, so he should have 1 more rainbow left. His last energy card, the Beast Energy, of course, in the Lost Zone. So as long as Zach's last energy card isn't prized and he smoothed over for it last turn, I think he had smoothed over before the prize penalty, though, so maybe he didn't set that up.
So how much HP does the Wink Wink Sylveon have?
I believe it is either 70 or 90. I'm not positive on that. So I think it is 90.
Interesting. So he opts to attack here.
90 HP on Wink Wink Sylveon, we've just been informed.
I believe that's 8 trainers in his discard.
6, 7, 8. 8.
So I was thinking maybe if Sylveon had 130, it could survive with his dumbbells, but
sure.
Zach is going to smooth over. Probably, yep, there is the rainbow in there. He's eyeing it. Eddie has to realize that, this is coming. If I was Eddie, maybe I would have used Magical Ribbon there to find the energy to pull off this Wink Wink play that you were talking about. Because he realizes he doesn't have the energy.
Oh,
he has Acrobite.
He has the game. There it is.
There it is.
Zach has what he needs. Rainbow Energy attach. Guzma brings up the Wink Wink
and
Sylveon.
That is the game.
Oh my goodness.
And there is 2 minutes left.
And there's no way this game
And there's no way this game ends.
Yeah.
That is, it's unfortunate for Eddie. It's a heartbreaking way to have this game slip away from you. But it's a mistake he made.
Yep.
Wow. Zach again, escaped with that one.
Yeah. But let's give Zach some credit as well, though. He definitely played that game very well. He was very mindful of his energy. He played around his opponent using Skull Grunt by not putting energies in his hand, so he played smart. That error from Eddie definitely makes a big difference. But Zach played well.
There was a while there where he was just smooth over pass.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's really effective against Sylveon because Sylveon is very reactionary. So if you don't give Sylveon anything to do, Eddie was kind of just sitting there taking cards.
Sure.
We got under 1:30 left. I assume these players will set up, but as soon as time is called, they'll realize that Zach is going to be the victor here.
There's a world where, Eddie's going to go first here. He can attach a Fairy Energy, get a Sylveon, and Zach just draw passes. If Eddie has a DCE, he can get a knockout turn 1 and win the game and result in a tie. So we'll see if that's the case or not. These players are both 5-1-1, so a loss here is not eliminating either of them from the tournament. They still can win their last round to get the winning in.
Yep.
But yeah, it's definitely, you want to get a win in this round. A win in this round guarantees you day 2, and you can play out your last round, try to get some more match points for day 2. A heartbreaking loss for Eddie, but well played by Zach.
Yep. So I think they're deciding whether or not Zach shuffled and that's warranting of a cut. You know, it's an interesting point of discussion, but Eddie doesn't really have the time to...
he just needs to draw cards and hope that he can get a donk.
He starts with nothing, and that is obviously devastating. I believe if the game doesn't set up...
I think if they've already declared who's going first, then if time is called and they've already declared who's going first, the person who's going first is turn 1 because there's no turn 0. So the idea behind... So the official timer says, I believe, that we are out of time. We're at time now in the round. So I believe the way that this should work, so turn 0 exists to let a player finish their turn, and since there's no turn in progress, whoever starts the game will be turn 1.
Okay, so we are learning that they actually did get a small time extension because of that judge ruling earlier with the extra card drawn. So they do have a little bit of time. Still, you know, Eddie is... Every second counts here for Eddie.
We're going to see. Looks like Eddie's going to mulligan once again. Only 4 basic Pokemon in his deck, so I'm sure he mulligans a lot with Sylveon.
Yeah, starting with a basic in your first opening hand is actually very uncommon.
And Zach just goes ahead and benches 2 Pokemon. That should be the writing on the wall.
Yep. Well, no, Eddie could plea and then hope Zach is nice enough to not put down the basic again.
Fair.
And then walk away with a tie, because they're both such great competitors. But, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. It was a very well-played game. It was very interesting to see top-level players come in against these sort of, you know, mill stall decks. Like we saw Xander do it in the finals of Roanoke against Waylord. You know, it always seems like there's no way they can win, and then kind of they see the line of play that we don't, and they pull out.
Yeah, their whole game plan changes from what their deck is standardly doing, right? They just totally mix up their strategy and have to tackle the game at a totally different angle, and that's what makes them the best players in the game. The ability to do that, the ability to make adjustments on the fly.
Yep.
I'm sure Zach, coming into this tournament, did not expect to play against Sylveon, but he knew what he had to do and was able to pull off that first game.
Yeah. You know, it's pretty cool, actually, that we got to see this as well. You know, it's always a treat watching them do this. You know, everybody kind of learns a lot about, you know, how decks function, but also kind of how these players think. And we do see the EV finally after 2 mulligans.
Yep.
And I think I see the Wink Wink Sylveon in his hand, which means that there's a couple of GX in the deck, certainly. Zach takes his mulligans. No basics there, but here we go.
I don't see a basic fairy. Eddie could literally just lose the game if he doesn't have a fairy energy. He's going to have to judge and try to find it.
Oh, this isn't good.
So Eddie could just lose this game naturally if he doesn't find a basic fairy and Zach finds a fighting energy or a rainbow. Sledgehammer does 30 damage. Eevee has 60 HP and is weak to fighting. Eddie's going to really be hoping off these 4 cards to find a fairy energy.
Yeah, Eevee has not bulked up enough yet to use these bodybuilding dumbbells, so we'll see. Oh, this is actually...
So time has now been called. It looks like Eddie's going to concede. He's not even going to draw. Is there a fairy energy?
So he wants Zach to draw
He's giving
as well.
Zach his own hand.
He draws 3 fairies.
But yeah, he's conceding anyway.
Yeah. So,
man, what a round.
Very interesting game.
Yeah.
For Eddie, you know, unfortunate.